Hello, c'est moi. I am back. You will be very glad to know the holiday videos are now done, finished, and we're back to some good old movie content. I'm hoping to move on to maybe some other type of content, getting back to like creepy stories, maybe true life stories that inspired movies. So we'll talk about the true story, talk a little bit about the movie. That's what we want to do sort of going forward. But I'm going to try and keep my weekly watches, that one video a week, and then maybe try and do a second video a week about a true story that inspired a movie. So that's the idea. So what I decided to do, folks, because it's been a couple of months, is rather than just do what I watched last week, there's so many movies that I watched over the past couple of months that I loved. I just wanted to share those with you, and likewise there's some that really I wouldn't waste your time with, in my humble opinion. So I'm just going to run down 10 of each. And then I watched a couple last night that I'll just talk about very briefly. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. I know I have a tendency to waffle, so I won't go into a lot of detail about these movies because most of you have probably seen them. We're not going to talk directors, actors, any of that stuff, just a very brief, this is what it's about, this is why I didn't like it, okay? So let's kick off with 10 movies that I watched in the last couple of months, maybe 3 months, that I feel you could give a miss. Okay, starting at the top of the list is The Boogeyman. This is a very recent horror based on, I believe, a Stephen King story. I went to see this with a couple of friends, which is unusual in itself because I usually go to the movies on my own. They both really enjoyed this. I found it as dull as dishwater. It was boring, it was by the numbers. It was very competently made, I will say that, but it just didn't do anything for me whatsoever. It didn't frighten me. I was checking my watch, is it nearly over? Not a fan. So The Boogeyman for me got a 2.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I have been updating my Letterboxd, so I always have it in the description. If you want to check out what I'm watching, folks, and what I think, just follow me on Letterboxd and you can see on there. Next, I'm not going to spend any time talking about is Fast X. I have not seen any of these movies. They don't appeal to me. I don't like movies with car chases in, which is probably the reason these don't appeal to me. I watched it purely because, I started watching it purely because Jason Momoa was in it. What can I do? The girl's just fickle. I couldn't bear it. I thought it was awful. I just couldn't get through it. I think I managed 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm like, no, even Jason Momoa, I'm not watching this shit, and it went off. So Fast X, no. Next is a movie called Happiness for Beginners. This is a romantic movie, which is never a good idea for me to watch. I don't know why I do. Well, occasionally there's a little gem, so I do watch some. This is a movie about a guy and a girl that end up on the same hike in a forest to like rediscover themselves, to sort of reevaluate life. The woman has recently got divorced. She's looking to discover herself again, and the guy is a friend of her brother's. Very obvious where it's going to go. Really didn't gel with the characters. I gave it a 1.5 out of 5. It's just fodder for people that like that kind of thing. Kind of like Saw movies are fodder for me. So yeah. Saw's out soon. Saw's out next week, guys. I can't tell you how excited I am. So the next one is one that I have seen very differing opinions on, is the Meg 2. Didn't enjoy it, didn't like it. Loved the first movie. Realised this was going to be just a really dumb fun. That trailer was incredible. Can I just say, why was Barracuda by Heart not anywhere in the movie? That song, that incredible song by an incredible band that was in the trailer with the amazing guitar riff, wasn't anywhere in the movie. Gutted. But I wasn't interested, and I found the acting was awful. There was one guy that I really enjoyed in it, and I would have liked to have seen him more, and I cannot remember the guy's name. I'm not going to look it up. He was the guy that was obsessed with his man bag. I loved him, thought he was great. Didn't enjoy anything else about the movie, so that's Meg 2. The next one is Haunted Mansion, which I watched because we were going to Florida. There, I got it in. We went to Florida. I thought maybe if we got a little bit of background on the Haunted Mansion idea that we might enjoy the ride a bit more. We have been to Haunted Mansion in Paris, and we think the theming is a much better ride there. I don't know why the difference, but we don't enjoy the one in Orlando at all. And it didn't really make any difference with the history. The film is very mediocre. It's no better than the Eddie Murphy version we saw years ago. I wouldn't recommend you check out Haunted Mansion. It's just, it looks beautiful. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I didn't think it was awful, but I don't think it's one that you need to rush out to see. So that's Haunted Mansion. The next one is called Choose Love. Again, why do I do it to myself? I will explain why I did it to myself. This is a bit of a different one on Netflix. There was one previously, Bandersnitch. Oh, Jesus Christ, I bet you're laughing because you know what I mean. There was a movie on Netflix where you could make decisions about what happens next, and there was all different endings. Can't remember. I want to say Cumberband Snitch Your Band, I don't know, something like that. This was called Choose Love, and it was about this girl who had 3 different choices of partner, the one she was with, the long-term love, the guy who comes into her life from her past that was the one that got away, and a new guy that turns up that's really exciting to her. So I watched this because I wanted to see how it panned out, and it was crap. Okay. I watched it because 2 of the guys were particularly hot out of the 3. The sensible decision was the one she was already with. There was one that was a bit of a rock star, and there was the one that was like a civil rights sort of guy that was like came back from her past. But if you like romances, yeah, check it out by all means. If you're not a fan of that kind of thing, probably best give it a miss. Right, next one. I don't actually even know if I should have this on here. I was disappointed with it, but I do feel it's a very competently made movie that a lot of people may love and think is like some kind of masterpiece. It's El Conde. This is on Netflix. It's a black and white vampire movie. Very competently made, very well acted. I was bored by it. Kind of in a way. The Last Voyage of the Demeter I thought was better, but again, it bored me a lot in places, and this I felt very similarly about. So we've got 2 movies about vampires that are black and white. All I will say is it felt really arty, and it was more about art than actual storyline. I was invested. I did like the performances. I did think it looked beautiful, but it was missing something. Is it fair to put it on a list of things you could probably miss? Probably not. If you're a horror fan, I would say check it out. It's not gory. It's very much drama based, so maybe I shouldn't have put it in there. I will say I put it in there because I was disappointed by it. 3 more guys. Canterville Ghost. I very much doubt any of you will watch this. This is a 2023 animation about a home called Canterville that is haunted by a ghost. We went to see it a few days ago purely because I needed to go to Belfast to get something. When I go to Belfast, we always tie in a Chinese buffet in the cinema. That was the only thing my son was old enough to get in to see because there's nothing for kids at the minute. At the minute, the real panic is what certificate are they going to put on Five Nights at Freddy's? In the US, you've got PG-13, which should equate to 12A for us, but all of the trailers for Five Nights at Freddy's have been 15s here. And to reiterate again, in case you're not aware, in the US, in the UK and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, if you want to go to the cinema, you must be the age of the certificate. If you're not, it's illegal for you to be allowed in. I know that's not the case. You can bring kids to horrors in the US, which I'm so jealous about. But my son is mad about Five Nights at Freddy's and he's 12. If they make it a 15, he will not be allowed to go to see it and he is going to be devastated. So still waiting to see what this movie's going to be. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a 15 because why would all the trailers be a 15 and then release the movie as a 12? So we shall see. So Canterville Ghost, the movie that we went to see in Belfast, was very much, it's an English movie. Stephen Fry is very much behind it. He voices it. He I think, did he write it or produce? Anyway, Stephen Fry has got a lot to do with it. Miranda Hart. It's the who's who's of sort of English comedians and actors. Very mediocre, not one that I would suggest that you watch. For little kids that want to watch tons of Halloween themed stuff, possibly, but other than that, nah. Okay, 2 final ones, and they're both documentaries. One is called The YouTube Effect. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're probably got a YouTube channel or you're interested in YouTube. This was a documentary on Netflix about YouTube, about how it had affected society in general, the world, where it came from, whose idea it was. Now, the background was really interesting about the idea of it, who came up with it, how it came to, to be. Then they went into American politics and never shut up about American politics the rest of the documentary, which may be interesting if you're American and you're really interested in politics and stuff, but people use YouTube all over the world. It's not just an American thing, so for them to concentrate solely on one country, I find really frustrating. There was so much more they could have done with it than they did. They went down one little avenue that just, I didn't see the point, so I would say it's not very good. Finally, and this is a contentious one because this one's extremely popular amongst people that have watched it. It's called Grizzly Man. Let me get this guy's name. I think his surname is Treadwell. Timothy Treadwell. So this is a documentary about a guy who you've probably heard of, who was he was crazy about bears, grizzly bears. And he used to go out to the wilderness and camp, and he would video the bears. He would get really close to the bears. You can guess where this is going. He was a bit eccentric, and he basically lived off the land. He was very experienced at what he was doing, they say. Eventually this guy brings his girlfriend out to this area where he looks at bears. He takes all these chances which are ridiculous. When you watch the documentary footage, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? This guy ends up getting eaten by a bear, and so does his girlfriend. There is audio of this which has never been released, which a good friend of his actually owns, because she has his camcorder, which has basically the cameras were always running, and he gets dragged off by a bear, and his girlfriend, same fate occurs to her. Now there is audio. I love listening and watching creepy footage, creepy audios, and one night in bed I was listening to creepiest ever audio footage, and it was things like weird noises from the bottom of the sea, and it was stuff in space, and it was like voicemails left by like killers. It was stuff like that. But on that, and I had no idea because it was just like a list of creepy stuff. On that, it wasn't the original one, but by Jesus, whoever did this, it was an audio recording of this incident, and that's how I came to know of it and why I wanted to see it. The audio footage that's on YouTube is a recreation, apparently, of the actual real audio footage. But it is so realistic. It sounds real. It doesn't sound acted. The screams of terror sound completely authentic. I was really shocked to hear it was a recreation, but apparently it's the closest thing you will hear to the actual footage. And it intrigued me. I wanted to see the documentary, and I was so disappointed by it. This guy was an idiot, and everything that I've read, people seem to think this documentary is amazing, and I don't get it, because I just spent the whole time shouting at the telly about how stupid he was. And this was going to happen eventually, and he like believed his own hype, and he thought he was amazing. And nothing gets on my wick more than arrogance. It just really turns me off, people, when they get real, oh, I did this and I did this and I'm fantastic. It's like, oh, just piss off. I'm not interested. But he was like that, and he ended up dying. Big surprise. Kill surprise. I was disappointed by it. Knowing the full story, I thought maybe he had a bit more about him, but in the end he didn't, and he ended up getting some woman killed as well. So yeah, Grizzly Man, a lot of people love it. I wasn't a fan. So that, how long have I talked? Oh, not too bad. 11 minutes. I have told you about things that I think you could give a miss, that I watched over the last few months. So let's end the video on a positive note with movies that I have watched that I feel, if you haven't already seen, that you should add to your list. I've just realised I'm covered in dog hair. See, when I come on video and then I come off and I'm editing and I can see it big, and there's dog hair and there's fluff and there's, oh Jesus, just, I'm bogging. Right, so when you have little dogs and one of them casts a lot and they're white, you have no chance. So recommended movie, guys. Let's just fly through these. So at the top of the list, I have a movie called Wildflower, which I think has hideously gone under the radar. I've really enjoyed this one. Okay, so Wildflower. This is a movie that follows the story of a girl from birth to graduation called B. The way they put it in the write-up is she has an intellectually disabled parent. Now, it's not just one of her parents. Both of her parents have issues. They have no idea about childcare, about what a child needs, about nurturing a child as they grow. They just don't have these instincts. I believe, if memory serves me right, her father was hit on the head at a very young age, and he just was never right again. And his mother, I think, is the one they're referring to, who was intellectually disabled, is how the write-up puts it. I had to Google or look it up in case I used the wrong wording. I wouldn't probably have used those words, but that's the words they have used. And they love their daughter desperately, but their daughter is growing up. She's a teenager. She's a bit embarrassed about her home, about the state of it, about her parents. And this follows her life and her family from, as it says, birth to graduation. And it's a beautiful movie. Fantastic performances throughout from everyone. Really enjoyed it, and I would recommend you check out Wildflower. That is a 2022 movie, I believe. Next is a movie that I feel I enjoyed it. I felt it could have been a bit better, but the message behind this one, or should I say the story in this one, is one I wasn't aware of. I'm a big sucker, as you know, about true stories, and this is one that I didn't know about. It's called The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. This is a shocking one. This is about I suppose he is elderly. This guy was a Marine. He was a 20-year veteran working in the corrections industry, like in prisons. He has a heart condition, and he has one of these, you know, the things that were around their neck, like you can press it to get, I can't remember what they're called. This goes off mistakenly when he's in his apartment and the police turn up to the door. Now, he is a black man. Police are at the door demanding to be let in. He tells them, I'm fine, I set it off by mistake, and they will not go away. And that's the premise of this movie. The title is The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. This man ends up dying at the hands of the police. It's a very shocking story. You can't understand why what happened. It's really like jaw-dropping. So yeah, I just felt it was a really important story. I do feel it perhaps could have been a little bit better as a movie, but it was still well worth a watch. As I say, it was just something I wasn't aware of and something I was really shocked by. Next, we're not going to spend any time talking about it, but this is how long it's been since I've done videos, folks. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Don't think I had that on a weekly watches. I do believe I did a review for it. I went to the cinema to see it. Absolutely loved it. 4 out of 5. Thumbs up. Really think if you haven't watched that one, check it out. Next is a little horror movie that's getting a lot of attention called Talk to Me. I went to see that at the cinema also. Really impressed by it. I found it really creepy. It's the one about with a hand, and these groups of teenagers like get together in a house. They have a bit to drink. Someone has to hold on to this like fake. Is it a mummy or is it made? It's like almost looks like it's made of china or plaster, but I can't remember. Is it mummified? Anyway, it's a hand. And when they follow these particular instructions, they are connected to the other side, to the world of the dead, and all kinds of weird things happen. This is a really creepy little movie. I really enjoyed it. There is one specific scene that just was really, really, really disturbing and made me look away. It was like, oh God, I can't look at this. Kudos if you can do that to me. Very little manages it, but this movie in one scene managed that entirely. So yeah, if you haven't seen Talk to Me, check it out. It's a really good little horror movie. Next is Gran Turismo, which I also saw at the cinema. The movie, the true story, although obviously liberties have been taken, it's not completely true, of the Gran Turismo players who were taken to an academy and taught how to actually ride the race cars for real, and then put against real race car drivers. And it follows one young man who basically wins. His family aren't behind him. His dad wants him to do something sensible with his life and sit on this bloody computer game playing it all day. And he manages to get into this team. He like wins. He doesn't win. There's like a group of people that come top. I think it's top 10 in the country of people that play this game, and they get chosen and put into an academy to be taught for real to ride the cars. Really enjoyed it, really engaging, really liked the acting, liked the just little things they did with the graphics and stuff. Thumbs up, Gran Turismo. Next is the next 3 are movies I watched on the plane, either to or from America. First one is a short story called An Irish Goodbye. This is the one that won the Oscar for Best Short Film last year. This is a story of 2 brothers who come together following the death of their mother, and they basically are trying to decide to scatter her ashes, and they come together. There is a list of stuff that this woman wanted to do with her life, and one of the brothers says to the other, we need to do these things for Mum before we say goodbye to her, before we lay her to rest. We need to do all this bucket list, and that's what the movie's about. It's pretty short, it's lovely. It really made me laugh. It really touched, like my heart. Is just one of those movies, not just because it's Irish, but it was a beautiful little movie. So An Irish Goodbye. Next is Armageddon Time, which has been on my list to watch for ages. Okay, so Armageddon Time, absolutely incredible cast. One of my favourite actors of all time, Anthony Hopkins, is in this. And this follows, it says, the end of an era, the beginning of everything. a deeply personal story about the strength of family, the complexity of friendship, and the generational pursuit of the American dream. And it follows this family, mainly this little boy's, a segment of his life, schooling, friendships. We deal with aspects of racism. They don't want him to be friends with this boy that he's really gelled with. It's about expectations for who he's going to be, parental expectation, his bond with his grandfather. It's just a snippet of life taken from an American family, and it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Just really, it's one for movie fans. It's one for people that don't want some people want something major to happen in a movie. They want there to be a massive big story and a big climax, and oh well, what was all that about if nothing major happens? This is a film that just takes a normal slice of life of this young boy and follows it, and we go along with him for the ride as to what life was like in that era for him and his family, and it's just a lovely little movie. So if you want big massive things happening, maybe not for you, but if you really appreciate this kind of film, yeah, check it out. And that's Armageddon Time. I've only got 3 left, folks. The next I also watched on, I think on the way back from America, was King of Staten Island. This is another one I've had on my list to watch for some time. What is that guy called? I'm terrible with actors. Sorry, folks. King of Staten Island. What are you called? A comedian. Really like him. Pete Davidson. Okay. So the write-up says Scott has been a case of arrested development ever since his firefighter father died when he was 7. He's now reached his mid-20s, having achieved little, chasing a dream of becoming a tattoo artist that seems far out of reach. As his ambitious younger sister heads off to college, he is still living with his exhausted ER nurse mother and spends his days smoking weed, hanging with the guys, and secretly hooking up with his childhood friend Kelsey. But when his mother starts dating a loudmouth firefighter named Rhyl, it sets off a chain of events that will force him to grapple with his grief and take his first tentative steps towards moving forward in life. I couldn't really explain that any better. This guy's going nowhere. He's living with his mom. All he does is waste his time with people that really he shouldn't be hanging with. He's got no prospects, he's got no aspirations. He wants to be a tattoo artist, and the artwork he's doing on his poor friends is terrible. This really nice girl wants a relationship with him. He's just sleeping with her, not interested. He's basically a fuck up, is the only way I can put it. But in this movie he discovers himself when his mum starts dating someone else. He's not ready for his mum to date someone, even though his father died when he was a young boy. He doesn't want to see anyone else in that position, least of all the guy that she ends up with. Steve Buscemi's in this, who's one of my all-time favourite actors. The part's not central, it's not massive, but it's enough to appreciate. This is fantastic, amazing. Again, it's a slice of life. It's what turns a person from one path to another. It's a long journey, but it's really worth following. Pete Davidson I love. I just find something really charismatic about him. He pulls me in. I find him really genuine as an actor. Really enjoyed it. So that's King of Staten Island. Last 2 I've got written here are You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah, which was a nice little movie. Actually, it's Bat Mitzvah, not Bar Mitzvah. This has got Adam Sandler's family in, his daughters and his wife. He's in it, but a background part. He plays the dad. This really is about his daughters, one of his daughters in particular, her and her friendship group. If you enjoyed Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, which was fabulous, this is a similar kind of movie. Not quite as good as Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, but it's a similar idea. Really enjoyed it. It's generally, things about teen girls generally won't be my cup of tea, but I really enjoyed this. I think it's well worth a watch. And lastly, I've got written down Past Lives. This is one that I heard a lot of hype about. I wasn't even aware of. I watched this quite recently. And this is a slow movie that follows, the only issue I had with this was pacing. It follows a woman. We see this girl and boy in childhood, and they're so close, they're best friends, and the girl moves away with her family and they reunite in later years. They find one another online, and the girl has married at this stage, and the person she's married is delightful. Really like the actor as well, lovely guy. But this person from her past that she's always had this deep love for has ended up in her life again. What's going to happen? Again, this is just like a slice of life. This is what would happen if. It's what decision are you going to make. It's not all bells and whistles, loads of stuff happen. You find yourself going back and forth in this movie with what you think you want to see happen. It's just implicitly well acted. It's a beautiful movie. In places, it's slow. There are a couple of places where the camera lingered for much longer than it needed to. That sort of, you know, when it lingers on a scene and it starts to make you feel uncomfortable and you almost want to reach for fast forward. It did that a couple of times, but it's a lovely movie. So Past Lives, I do recommend. So I will end with, I wrote this list out before I'd watched the last 3 movies that I watched, which I will end with. I've prattled. Right, I'm probably going to be on about half an hour for this, which is not bad given that I haven't done one for so long. So last night I watched The Passenger and Birth/Rebirth. The Passenger is a movie. Randolph Bradley is perfectly content fading into the background, but when his co-worker Benson snaps and goes on a violent killing spree, he's forced to face his fears and confront his troubled past in order to find a way to survive. Sounds a lot more dramatic than it is. This is a drama. There's a couple of scenes in it of shooting, obviously. Acting is on point on here. Really good. What's the names of the guys? Kyle Gallner, Johnny Birchtold, Lisa Well, Billy Slaughter. It's good. I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 out of 5. I do feel some people may be disappointed by it when they read the synopsis. They'll expect something quite thrillery, quite, you know, with a horror edge or something quite gross, but it's not. It's a drama. Really well acted, really tight. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5 for that one. And Birth/Rebirth. This one was really interesting. I'm still in that camp of deciding how I felt about it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Maybe it deserved a little bit more. I don't want to tell you much about this. I don't want to give anything away. I knew too much when I went into this. A single mother and a childless morgue technician are bound together by their relationship to a little girl. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. There is the remainder of that sentence that I'm not going to read to you. So these two people, very different individuals, come together. They have a common interest. Something happens. It's a bit sci-fi what happens. It's got a little horror edge to it, but I would describe this movie again as a drama with a sci-fi edge to it. It's different, it's unique. I did really appreciate something different like this. There is a question of ethics in this, and you find yourself not entirely sure, especially if you're a parent, how you feel about what's happening, and you try and you put yourself in a position and how would you feel. It's an interesting little movie. If you get a chance to check it out, check it out. Birth/Rebirth. And finally, I watched the night before Elevator Game. Have I talked about No One Will Save You? I don't think I have. No One Will Save You, the movie that everyone's talking about with like one line of dialogue in the whole thing. Really good, really enjoyed it. It's about aliens. It's been described as a cross between Signs and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's got Caitlin, I'm not sure if it's Dever or Dever. I've liked this girl for some time. I really like her, really genuine actress. Really believable. I always feel invested when I see her in a movie or a series. Really enjoyed it. Would really recommend it. No One Will Save You. I've heard everyone else saying exactly the same thing, so check that out if you haven't seen it. And I watched Elevator Game, which I knew is a horror movie about that very famous game where you press the floors in an elevator in a very specific order and something happens. Something creepy happens. You connect with the other side. It's dangerous, blah blah blah. I had heard it was mediocre. It is mediocre. I just wanted to see it for myself because I like that kind of thing. It's not one of the worst things I've ever seen. It would probably keep like a group of young girls at a sleepover could watch this and probably quite enjoy it. It's not deplorably awful, but there's nothing new. It's not fantastic. It's just okay. So that's Elevator Game. So I'm up to date, guys, with what I've seen. What I'm watching at the moment is a series called Welcome to Wrexham. I'm watching that following watching a review from Carly09's channel. This is about the football team from Wales that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought and they now own. and it's basically a documentary following the idea when they wanted to buy it, pitching it to the club, buying it, and then all the way through. I think I've watched about 10 episodes. There are 16. The episodes are short, so it's easy to watch. I hate football, guy. I can't even tell you how much I hate football. Soccer, if you're in America. But I'm really enjoying the series. It's really interesting. Also, I've started, how many? 3 other... I'm awful for starting something and like not sticking with it, but I will finish these. Mask Girl, which is South Korean, which is really interesting. I've been watching that. The Glory, again, it's South Korean. These are both on Netflix. And The Uncanny Counter, again, it's Korean. Not entirely sure about that one. I've watched about 4 episodes, maybe 5. Aspects I like, aspects I don't. If you've watched any of those 3 in their entirety, so that's Mask Girl, The Glory, or The Uncanny Counter, let me know if they're worth sticking with, guys. So that's what's happening at the moment. For me, the next big thing is the Saw movie that comes out next week. If you know me at all, you will know Saw is my favourite horror franchise. Yes, I realise some of the movies are terrible. Do I care? Not a jot. It's just my bag. I love it. So my arse shall be on the seat in the cinema the first chance I get next week. I will, of course, bring you with me and do a review. After that, I'm not entirely sure what's even coming out. Five Nights at Freddy's, I know we're getting in October. But I'm back. Thank you so much if you've watched all of this. I know it's a long one. I will try and keep the future ones down a little bit. So yeah, that's it. We are back, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. I will hopefully be back next week with another What I've Watched. Over and out from Lisa Loves.